Action.
Almost. All right. So welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
How are we doing? Good. I believe that y'all just took the longest shop tour ever in Frankenstein history.
Absolutely.
Thanks to Mr. Chris.
Well, we learned a lot and we challenged a lot, so I think it went good.
I believe you're correct. Yes.
Well, we got stuck in the bench room that I'm really not sure if we came out of liking or hating. So that's my conclusion.
You're talking about the flow testing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So as soon as we're done here, I'm going to go over there and start porting stuff.
No, we're not. We have to leave here at some point.
You didn't see JD sneak him an application?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That won't be his only one while we're here.
I've already gotten the written offer, so.
Well, guys, first of all, I, like I said earlier, thank you for coming. I know that it's not always the easiest thing to do, to take off work and then to just head on down and explain to your bosses, yeah, we're going to do an internet radio show. So it is not lost upon anybody here for y'all taking the time out to come out down here and do this thing.
No, thanks for having us.
Yeah. So on this show so far, we've had quite a diverse amount of people, of guests on. I don't necessarily like calling them guests. They're just buddies or friends, right? Most recently, we had on Ryan Gleghorn, who is a bracket race promoter from the DFW area. Before that, we had Callie Nate on. So, like, you know what I mean? Very different lifestyles.
Completely different.
Very different things that they do. I would like to say y'all are the first hardcore dedicated streetcar people here.
Woo!
Woo!
Yeah.
Streetcar or no car.
So the interesting thing that I've basically come to discover myself personally, obviously I'm not the first person to see this thing, is the streetcar market itself. Y'all are from the Oklahoma City area.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's very prevalent in the Oklahoma City culture of streetcars that haul ass. Like, that's not a secret, I think. I'm pretty sure a particular TV show has kind of put that on display for quite a long period of time as well.
Yes.
So explain to me, how far back does that reach to the both of y'all? Because obviously, if you grow up in this culture and you're around it, it's going to affect you.
Yeah.
Do you remember, either one of y'all, when the first time you might have seen just a hot streetcar, maybe someone with a cam in it or whatever? Just, do you remember that impression, or do you remember when that happened?
I already know what story Aaron's going to tell, so he can go ahead.
No. Tell me, because I think I don't know if we're talking about the same one.
You're going to tell the cam story when I had the Infinity.
Oh, yeah. So Felicia originally had a Infinity G35, little V6, 6-speed, and we're driving down the road one day. So she had already kind of modified this car, done a little bit to it, but she raced it at the track. I mean, she hot lapped this car over and over and over. Like, she wanted to learn how to drag race.
Okay.
So we're cruising down the road one day, and this SRT8 Charger drives by, and it's cammed, it's thumping. I mean, it sounds good. Mm-hmm. And Felicia said, how do I get my car to sound like that? And I said, you buy a V8. That's what I told her. And I swear, like less than 3 months later, the Infinity was sold, and she was buying a Cadillac.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
and this is how this whole thing started from there.
Well,
yes.
I wanted that sound. Like, that's not where my interest in cars came from or my interest in racing came from, but just something about that sound is what took me to the V8s, because I had a Honda Civic, I had a Eclipse, I had an Infinity. You know, I was just, and I still love imports very much, but I was just definitely going down a different path until that day. And Aaron remembers it so vividly. And then we turn around and we buy the Cadillac, and the first car that we raced was also a Charger.
Yeah.
So it's just a funny story that always stands out, and that's kind of how my love for big cams came about, I guess. But for me, my first experience, I guess, in Oklahoma City, kind of with what made street racing famous there, we went to a car show in maybe Mustang.
Bethany.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the farm truck was there. And I actually have a picture with it. I think that was 2012 or 2013. And I have a picture with it. And so it just, For everybody out there who loves Street Outlaws and who just is at home watching like I was, it kind of becomes a small world whenever then you're there with people like that. So it's definitely achievable, but that was 10 years ago. Nothing happened overnight. We had just graduated college.
I was going to say overnight success right there, right?
No, good Lord. I mean, we were 20. Aaron might have been 19. So it just... We were young and they were kind of showing the world what street racing was, and we've dabbled in it, and then we've got out of it, and then we've got back in it, and we kind of, I would like to say that we're well-rounded racers, and we kind of do a little bit of everything, but that's definitely the first person that I remember. The first vehicle that I remember is the truck, and just being so infatuated with it.
Yeah, I mean, to share like a little bit of a personal story, I remember being a really young kid, my dad raced, right? My dad tried to run Comp Eliminator with a car that had no business doing it, with a motor that had no business doing it whatsoever, right? This is a little bit before I was born, and he realizes he's not going to be competitive in that class, right? So then he turns to bracket racing with that car and had some mild success with it, I would say. But I remember I went to the racetrack all throughout, really early childhood. And I remember being like 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old. And I have other memories earlier than that of being around race cars or being around people that had race cars, whatever it may be. And we go to the racetrack just for the simple fact of delivering a part to somebody. We're in Miami. They're from up north, like Orlando. We met them at Palm Beach. And my dad delivers the part. We are actually at Palm Beach, behind the tower, behind the water box, everything. The staging lanes are completely empty. 2 cars are going down the racetrack as my dad is handing the part to this guy, and the guy's giving him cash. And I was like, so are we going to be able to watch? And he goes, that was the final. It's over. And I just remember being like the most upset little brat kid in the whole world,
Deflated.
Just mad as hell, just like, we just drove an hour and a half.
Didn't get to
and I'm
see
going to
race.
see no race cars.
Oh, no.
Cue temper tantrum.
Exactly. Just came unglued, and I was not having it. And I just remember those cars pulling out, and going under the tower, like way more vivid than the 15 or 20 other experiences that I've had before that. It's just for whatever reason that's ingrained in my mind.
It's one that stuck with you.
And I feel like what you're talking about, or really Aaron's story, it stuck more with him, is just that experience, whether it may be teaching somebody or their first exposure to something like this, that is an ingrained memory, something that just sticks into you. And I don't think that's just an American thing. I think a lot of other people have that experience as well. When you watch like the Goodwood Festival and they see like a big block Camaro come around the corner or whatever, and they're all like, oh, and they freak out. Whereas everybody over here on this side of the Atlantic, we see a Formula One car out there doing donuts in Vegas or whatever. And we're like, yeah. Just because it's different. And everybody always likes seeing something that they don't see every day.
So I'm guessing y'all seen the Formula One cars in Vegas this year or last year from SEMA?
So I haven't seen them there. I've seen several different types of, or really generations of either Indy cars or Formula One cars, like in different places. Mm-hmm. I remember going to an IndyCar test session at Homestead when I was a really young child. And that was like, if being at the racetrack as a really young kid wasn't enough of a hook, this was the concrete shoes that sank me all the way to the bottom. Seeing that, those late 90s Indy cars, really it was kart, but they were they're coffins that go 250 miles an hour.
Right.
At that time, they made so much power, and it was dead quiet. And they spin them over, fire them off, light them off, and roll out of the garage. And they sound like the meanest, angriest things that you've ever heard in your entire life. And then they come rolling out of there through a little escape chute onto pit road. And they kind of give it just a tiny bit of throttle, maintaining pit road speed or close to it. It is a tire test, They go out, clear that, and then just start pouring the coals to it. And it was just infectious.
Yeah.
It was just like, what is that?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah.
What do I got to do to be involved in that?
Yeah.
No matter what the capacity of it is. And hell, 25 years later, here we are, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So last year after SEMA, they blocked off Las Vegas Boulevard.
Right, for the announcement of the new F1 race in Vegas.
Right. So they allowed, there was like 2 or 3 F1 cars, and then there was maybe like 2 trophy trucks.
Okay.
That they allowed to drive up and down the area that they had blocked off. And we were fortunate enough that we got a balcony seat at one of the bars there, and we got to watch all of that happen. The sound of those high RPMs bouncing off the casino walls was insane.
It's amazing what 18,000 RPM sounds like.
Man, and I think they're 3 cylinders, aren't they?
No, so right now the current era that we're in is the V6 era, the V6 hybrid turbo era, because there's a V6 turbo era, and before that there's a V6 era, naturally aspirated. Before that V8, before that V10, before that V12. If you're not a Formula One fan, whether someone listening to this or y'all, I highly recommend that y'all go back and look at YouTube videos of like Spa qualifying in the V12 era, because there were no limits on RPM and there were no limits on how much power or fuel consumption you could have. And it is absolutely ignorant as to what noise comes out of that thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it is the most beautiful song that's ever been sang, in my opinion, just because there's a theory that myself and a couple of other people are working on, that, and by working on, it means we are aware of an outlier statistic and trying to connect the dots backwards as to why. There's something to do with sound coming out of the exhaust on an engine and how they do perform. And now, keep in mind, the noises that an engine are going to make are both exhaust and from the valve train. So this could be just the valve train being quiet and giving a different note, so to speak, that is allowing the engine to operate more efficiently and making more power. But there's something to a key about how when you reach a certain RPM number and the engine starts to get quieter instead of louder. And that's a very interesting note when you've been around different engine combinations and things like that. You go, wait a minute, that's different. What's that about? And it spirals out of control into 50 different questions. We're 3 years into this thing and have zero amounts of ground gained on answering this question. However, it's interesting. And just like anything else you see up on that board, it's a write it down and don't ever forget it, and see if you can maybe connect a dot to it later through logical thinking.
Right.
So, but it's very unique in that manner, and hearing those V12 cars. I mean, to be totally honest with you, even the V10s and the V8s were extremely special in those different manners when it comes to an F1 car and what they're able to put down. You're talking about extremely tiny engines that make not a lot of torque, but they make it so late in the RPM curve, it generates a lot of power. And that's the whole secret to naturally aspirated stuff, is just make peak torque as often and as late as possible as you can and keep the valve train stable, whether that be with overhead cam stuff or pushrod stuff. Pushrod stuff, you're obviously going to be limited to, I'd say, 11.5 or less. Some people have ventured a little farther than that with incremental success. Is there something to be gained there? Sure, absolutely. Do we have the technology and everything else to implement it into a full system that anybody can buy? Oh, no. Oh, God, no. Not even remotely close for something like that. 10,000 RPM, we're just now approaching that, to where someone can call and buy stuff that is, I wouldn't say on the shelf, but it has a part number assigned to it.
Yeah.
That is available, and you can hit something that's going to run 10 grand in a drag racing application, and for the most part be acceptable as far as the maintenance on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's certainly not going to be like a hydraulic roller street car. You got to just manage your expectations. The harder you spin stuff, the shorter lifespan it has, obviously.
So I can't remember exactly the setup of the car, but Vengeance Racing over on the East Coast, they built a white C5.
Yeah, Ron Moen's deal.
Yeah, and I think it was like Fat Man is the name of the car or something like that. And they turned 10,000 RPM in that car, which I thought was extremely impressive, given I don't think they changed the location of the camshaft in the block.
No, the nice thing about an LS engine is the architecture of it is it's very close to the best pushrod engine you can make. You got to keep in mind, though, you're looking at the baby. You're not looking at the labor pains. So the LS engine, the LT engine, the Godzilla platform, any pushrod engine platform that exists today is essentially the final product. You're not looking necessarily at the small block Chevys, the big block Chevys. God forbid the Gen 2 Hemis. They're awful in certain aspects when it comes to valve train. You're not looking at a W engine. A W engine is a predecessor to a big block. Your big block Ford, small block Ford, whether it be Windsor or Cleveland, those are the labor pains that have brought us the technology, which is the birth of the Godzilla LTLS, whatever variation your favorite flavor is. So when you think of like cam position, that cam position's really raised when it comes to the crank center line and seeing something else relative to things of the past.
Sure.
Now, there are blocks that obviously offer an even higher location for it. Doing so can help you achieve a better push rod angle, shorter push rods, obviously. That's the majority of it. That's going to help you with things. You can get to a point where if you raise it, inches too high, then you start putting yourself at a disadvantage. Sure. But obviously, everything's going to be maintained slightly relative. Depending on what your lifter bank angle is going to be, transparent or not transparent, but transposed to where the rocker location is on the rocker pad, things like that. It's to quote one of my mentors, Ben Strader, building a high performance engine is nothing but a series of compromises that you're willing to accept. And sorry, Ben, I know I just butchered that quote like hell, but that's the way that I digest it in my mindset. There's a lot of other things that if you move something, it affects something else downstream. Sure. Whether you're willing to accept those consequences or not is your decision.
Right.
If you're the designer. But so tell me a little bit about what y'all have been up to. We just got done obviously doing that shop tour, and you mentioned doing drag and drive events. Mm-hmm. Drag and drive events have become a very hot ticket.
They've blown up. Completely blown up.
And it's not like it's necessarily a new idea.
Not at all.
I believe it's much more well marketed. There are great promoters putting on these events. There are, if I'm not mistaken, prizes. There's media coverage. There's a lot of good benefits to it. It's not necessarily just prize money for people that want to compete in these things. And not to mention, the camaraderie around these events is absolutely fun. Like
yes.
It's not like... I don't know how another way to explain it, but it's not like you're going to a pool hall full of a bunch of sharks and they're all trying to take your money from you.
Not even close.
You're going racing with buddies.
Yes.
So y'all just went through a whole season of dedicating your off time away from work to going into that. What's that like?
So I would love to take the credit for the dive into the Dragon Drives, but really it was always something that Aaron wanted to do. My goal was to, run a 10, run a 9, and do some wheelies. And Aaron was like, what would be more fun? If we drove the car around and did burnouts with a trailer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, well, let's try it. And we started out 2 or 3 years ago.
3.
Doing Dragon Drives, and we learned very quickly that is very hard. Mm-hmm. It is so hard to go from track to track each day, places that we've never been, and adjust the car for that track, for that weather, for that elevation. The DA changes so much. And then driving there, it took us like 7 hours to drive. Well, you don't get on the highway. No.
You're not allowed to do that.
No. You're on back roads.
Yeah.
And it took us like 7 hours to get from Oklahoma City to down here to Summit and then over to Ennis. We got in dead stop traffic. We got in construction. The transmission started overheating. This was before we had a cooler. And, that's just one of the examples. We've put a hole through a valve. We randomly lost the EMP pump.
Yeah.
The relays kept burning. We've had that EMP pump for the car not that pump, but that relay the entire time. I think that we've owned the car.
No, not the entire time, but we had that relay in the whole wiring harness that we had built for it for probably 2 years. But what she's getting at is just magically during this Drag and Drive event, it burns up.
Said I'm out.
Yeah, it won't work no more. So who would have thought that needed to be brought as a spare? Nobody. So now you're going to an auto parts store and you're trying to MacGyver together something to finish this damn race with, you know? And so that's like the perfect example. I think drag and drives really represent your true hot rodders. These are the people that battle attrition to make it to each race day, right? And it's beyond crazy the amount and the in-depth repairs that you see being done. The first year that we did it, the time that we burned the valve that she was talking about, there was a Fox body that blew the engine on his like second pass that night in Tulsa.
This is day one, by the way.
Yeah, this is day one. Okay, so he blows the engine. He finds somebody local, buys the engine from him, brings it back, pulls his camshaft out, cleans it all up, puts it in the other one, pulls the head off. I can't remember if he got the heads cleaned up or what. Bolts it back together. We get to the track the next morning, and he is finishing it up, putting the engine in, and he has the radiator zip tied to the front. Because he lost the bolts. I think he lost the bolts. He literally zip tied it to the front bumper and took off to the next track. And I'm telling you, it's like that's the type of stuff that the automotive world likes to engage with.
Oh, absolutely.
Because these people are not, no, you can't borrow a tool. No, I'm not going to tell you anything. These people literally would be like, I'll make this pass and pull my intake off if you need it.
Exactly. What do you need?
Yeah, it's insane. Like you said, the camaraderie is when we did that first event, we were just mind blown.
I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, well, that guy pretty much, he gave, and if you're watching this, you gave us an entire different idea of drag and drives. Like at that point, we thought we were dedicated. And we realized that we were dealing with an entirely different group of people.
Yeah.
And we loved it.
Yeah.
Well, it once again, it goes back to that culture idea. The idea around these drag and drive events is there's really not that much money up. I mean, I would love personally, just because I come from a little bit of a different racing operation, I would love to see the money get injected into it and see y'all be able to race for big money and all this other stuff and get the benefits that we get on another side of the industry. Because I believe it helps prosper it, and it definitely feels good to make a return on your investment from time to time. But when that's eliminated at the beginning of something, it allows for this natural little pool of people that are there for the right reasons, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's your love for it.
Right. You're not there to obviously make a paycheck by any means. You are there because you care, and you're there because this is what you do. This is your thing. Okay. You may not, little Timmy is going to have to not get hitting lessons for the next 6 months because we need a transmission, damn it. And those aren't cheap.
Yeah.
And he's got to help you put it in.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And that's some of the things that I have seen for sure in not just, what I do, but obviously in the drag and drive stuff. I never assumed that I would see that level of commitment without the money being there. And to be honest with you, it's wonderful to see because it shows to me that many people care. Mm-hmm. And it's not a fad. You know what I mean? Like this isn't a flash in the pan moment. I don't remember when the first drag week was, but it was certainly at least more than 15 years ago or close to 15 years ago. And the fact that business model for a promoter is successful to the point where it at a minimum breaks even, because that's a lot of track rental time. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of organization. It's everything that is a nightmare of putting on a race times how many places do you want to go to? Mm-hmm. And how many checkpoints do you want to have?
And handwriting these directions and having somebody scout it and drive the roads. And I can't, Jared, J-Rod in Oklahoma City with Cruising Oklahoma, they are doing 3 now in different states instead of just the 2 in Oklahoma. The amount of work that goes into it, but it is so worth it. And we so appreciate it. Like it just, the families that go and the wagons that will have 5 people in them for this whole race week. Like Chris did it. Yeah. Chris had his grandfather and his kids with him. Yeah. Oh, awesome. It's so different than your show up and it's a $20,000 pot and it's cutthroat and everybody's mad at everybody the entire time and nitpicking things apart. It's so different.
Right. And everybody's looking for an advantage.
Yeah.
Or looking at trying to find, oh, did you crack the tire before the light got banged? I don't know. Let's go look at the cameras. We got 3 cameras over here. Come on, da 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 da. Instead of allowing you to go work on your car if you need to, or make an adjustment in the tune, whatever it may be.
At this point, most people are praying they make it to the next track. That's
Exactly.
what they're thinking about.
So there's a certain level of respect when you see a car that has a race week sticker on it, or if it has a hitch on the back of it.
I agree with that.
There's a certain level of respect when you see that car. You're like, I'm not going to underestimate that guy. Okay, I know he's put in a lot of work for that car.
We are such handfuls. We'll see like Camrys going down the highway with a hitch, and we're like, race week.
This is true. This is very true.
I was going to say, like growing up, going to car shows, you see somebody with a parachute on the back side, you're like, oh, this thing must be fast. You know, NHRA, 155 mile an hour. But nowadays, if I see something on slicks and it's got a trailer hitch, I'm like, yeah, that thing probably does all ass.
Yeah.
At a minimum, I know it's not slow.
Yeah.
But so going back to what we were originally talking about for a moment, with the Cadillac, right? Get out of the Infiniti, go to the Cadillac. What? Out of genuine curiosity, right? This is your first race car.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Fast one.
What? The last one too?
No, fast one.
Oh, I thought that was the last one.
No. I'm going to have more. I just need money.
Sounds like my wife with kids. So where did you find this car? What was the buying process like? Was it at a dealership? Did you buy it from an owner? Like, how did you find this car?
Okay, so I came home one day. I was working in the oil field, working long hours. I had heard the charger, and I was stuck. And I remember sitting on the couch, and I told Aaron, I was like, I worked too hard to not have the things that I want. I said, I'm going to sell the car, and I'm going to buy a car that I want. And so the point from there, we went and drove a first generation CTSV, a little manual 2007, 2008, something like that. And it wasn't bad.
Right. They're fun cars.
It wasn't bad. Yeah. I was really, really stuck on keeping my racing career in a manual car.
Okay.
Because all my previous ones were. And so I was very, very persistent on that in the beginning. And Aaron was very persistent on a 4-door. So I was trying to go a little bit of both ways, and so we went and drove that. It was okay. And then, of course, I did what probably every person does, and I went and drove a Corvette. It was a C5.
No, it was a C6.
A C6, okay. My Corvette knowledge isn't great, so it was a C6. Man, this might hurt some feelings, but I didn't like it.
No?
I didn't like it.
Tell them why you didn't like it.
It felt old. It was like low to the ground, and you felt every single bump, and there were I was like, listen, I'm coming from an Infiniti. I have heated seats. I have these nice things, and I'm like, man, remember, my whole thought process is I work hard and I want something nice, but I want it fast, and I want it to sound like that Charger. So lots of wants here, okay? I'm a woman. So I don't like the Vet. It looks beautiful. It sounds great. Everybody else obviously loves them. I still think they look beautiful. It was not for me. And a gentleman at my work actually sent me what is now known as the 4-door Rocket on, it was a Craigslist post.
You found it on Craigslist?
It wasn't even Marketplace. It was a Craigslist post that he sent me.
So this is probably 2013.
Did you buy it east of 35 or west of 35? Because that's a big difference for the people in Oklahoma if they know. Did you buy it east of 35 or west of 35?
Well, it came from Lovefield.
No, like,
is that what it's called? Lovefield. It's east of 35, but it's
no.
Are you saying because that means something?
East of 35. Everybody knows a little bit of east of 35 there. It's a little different than the west side of 35.
Okay. Well, either way, he sends it to me. I tell him I don't want it. It's an automatic and it's red, and I'm not interested. I don't want either one of those things. And we went down to the Cadillac dealership in Norman, Oklahoma, and they had a black one. I'm pretty sure it was still a manual car, but it didn't have a sunroof. And we drove it. Anyways, I loved it. I sold the Infiniti. I went back to get it, and they sold it. Ooh. They sold it like maybe 2 or 3 hours before that time. And it's my own fault. It's not like I put a down payment down. Right. It's not like I signed papers on it or something. It just had been there for months, and I didn't expect it to sell on the day that I sold my car, which I was daily driving to work. So that was a great decision. So at that point, I had to move a little bit faster. And so...
You had to call Craigslist, Carl.
Yeah.
Gosh, dang it. I was like, let's go look at the dang car. And so we drive down, me, Aaron, and my dad, and we meet at the casino that is halfway from y'all and us on the border.
WinStar, right.
WinStar, for anybody who doesn't know it, big casino. And we are waiting for him, and so we're inside gambling. He texts me he's there. We walk out, and there is that sound. The sound that the Charger was making.
It already had a cam in it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's cammed so hard. I'm like, love, is that the car? And he says, yes. And I'm like, I'm so excited. And my dad, I don't know what he's thinking. He's quiet. He's just like, okay. So we get in the car. Aaron is driving because at this point, I know very, very little. And Aaron grew up working on cars. Like, he's literally who I learned everything from. And so, this guy's not going to let us all joyride his Cadillac. And so he said somebody could drive it. And I'm like, well, Aaron needs to drive it. Aaron gets in the driver's seat. Owner gets in the passenger seat. My dad and I get in the back because it's a 4-door.
Right. Yeah.
And we get on the highway and Aaron hits it. And at this point, it's making 600 wheel horsepower.
Okay.
And I just remember the feeling, one, scared shitless, and two, I loved everything about it. I loved it.
The blower wine, the pin you in the seat,
all
everything.
of the above.
Yeah.
All of the above.
Yeah. So the pinner in the seat is, I think, what got her, but it also got her dad. So he gets out and he was like, oh man, that thing's fast.
So we get back to the casino and, I tell the guy I'll think about it and he leaves and we get back into whatever we were driving at the time. And I said, Aaron, is there anything wrong with it? Like, did you think mechanically? Did you feel anything? Did anything make you question it, hear anything? And he said, no, there's nothing wrong with the car. And so I texted the guy and I said, I'm gonna buy the car. And so I bought it. And next weekend, we had a coworker of mine take us down to get it, and I drove it all the way home. And by the way, when you have a very, very large cam like that in cruise control, you can feel it. And so I panicked and debated my life for probably 20 minutes coming north on 35, thinking that something was wrong with the car.
Yeah, so it had like a little surge while you're trying to cruise in cruise control.
Right.
And she's like, is something wrong with it? Like, what's wrong with it? Because it's like, and she's like, something's wrong with it. So she's thinking she just bought a lemon, so she's like panicking.
Yeah, I'm just thinking I lost all of my money.
This guy just drove off of my money and sold me a piece of crap.
Yeah. Yes. And so actually, funny story, and I'm sure that he probably doesn't realize to this day, but the first shop that the car ever went to was Ryan Martin's shop.
Yeah. Okay. B&R. They had B&R. And we took it up there because he had it tuned originally on 93. 93 is real easy to get down here.
Right.
In Oklahoma City, there was only one gas station that had it. Yep. So it was very inconvenient. So we took it over to Ryan Martin, to B&R, because...
we were retuning it for 91.
Yeah, what was his name?
Carger.
Yeah. James Carger. He like remote tuned for B&R.
Okay.
And he was the one that originally tuned the Cadillac. So it worked out really well. So we took it up there. He tuned it on 91 and made like 616 or something to the wheel. And I think it was that weekend when we took it up to the north side.
And raced.
Yeah.
The SRT.
Yeah.
Let me explain to y'all how Aaron works.
Okay.
I buy this car that I tell him I want to bubble wrap because I'm so in love with it.
This is true.
So 3 days later, we go out. We get to a car meet that's behind some big building.
It's in a warehouse district.
Okay.
It's pitch black dark. There's a lot of hoodlums out here. We're at one of those car meets. And Aaron says, who has the fastest car here? Because that's who we want to race.
Attaboy.
This is where we are. And it just so happens to be a Charger.
Okay.
And we end up making a good relationship with this gentleman, and we still talk to him to this day, and we have raced him in other vehicles that he owns. So that's really neat. But that was Aaron's thought process. And so, from there, it kind of started, and Aaron raced every car he could find on the highway, and I raced every car that would get beside me at the track, and I daily drove it for the first 2 years.
Yep.
And about a year into it is when we ended up coming to meet y'all.
Okay.
We didn't have it for very long, and we were forced into the rebuild world.
Yeah.
So there's that.
So it ended up cracking 2 ringlands on cylinders 7 and 8, which is common
for
those CTSVs.
LSA blower stuff. Yes, getting the proper amount of air fuel distribution in those back cylinders is not an easy task.
Right. And so at this point, Frankenstein is building engines.
Yes.
Y'all had a dyno here.
Yeah, they're also building engines. So we came down. Justin White was the tuner. We came down. He put the car on the dyno. He's trying to make more power. Car won't make any more power. It literally is like nosing over. So we know something's wrong. So we talk with Chris. Chris is like, yeah, we'll get you an invoice, but we need to take that engine apart first to see what's salvageable.
Right.
So we pull the engine out of the car. Mm-hmm. Now, mind you, this woman loves this car at this time. This is her baby.
I still love it.
It's no, she wants it bubble wrapped. Okay. So I'm pulling this engine and I'm literally documenting every step that I took just so I can make sure that it all went back perfectly. Right. So I pull this engine out. We bring it down here. We dropped it off. We stay the weekend in Dallas. We're eating dinner one night and Chris sends me a picture and he's like, uh-oh. And there's literally ringlands setting on the ground. And he was like, we pulled the pistons out and this is here. Didn't damage the bore, didn't damage the head, nothing. He was like, y'all should go to the casino. Like, he's like, I'm not sure how you didn't destroy this
that's
engine.
totally honest. Yeah, like how you don't scuff a cylinder wall up by doing that. Yeah, it's beyond me.
So it was impressive. So she reused that block. That block was still good. She reused the LSA crank and they put basically rods and pistons in it.
Right.
Cleaned, machined everything, and then put it back together. And I think we ended up making like 820 or so on that engine for a long time, for like 2 years.
Maybe somewhere around there. I can't remember. We didn't have y'all port the heads immediately.
No.
So I can't remember the horsepower difference before and after. But Chris also ended up speccing a cam for it. So pretty much my entire first build was from here.
Right.
From top to bottom.
Right.
One of the few people, and then we got really smart and decided that we probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah, they were like, I never want to do that again. Get her car out of here.
I've got a buddy of mine, Siebert. He's one of our distributors here, and I was putting together my motor for my car, and I was halfway through filing rings, and I just sent him a text, and I said, I want you to understand, I do not envy you in any way, shape, or form. This is terrible. Just sent it to him with a picture of this, and he goes, oh, yeah, that sucks.
Right.
Yep.
And I'm so glad that other people build engines. To be totally honest with you, I want no part of it.
Right.
Same. Shout out to Kyle. We go see him tomorrow.
Thompson Motorsports. Thanks for building those. Yeah, because you think about it, you got to put it all together and literally run it to figure out if something's wrong.
And
so
so much preparation.
Yeah. It's not a simple build it and then I'll test it right here. Like it takes a lot of effort
Exactly
to do it.
Exactly. And as we say that, I have short block parts that are already UPS bound inbound. So guess what? I get to build another one.
There you go.
Yeah, I love this crap.
Yeah.
But so the evolution of this car, right? You're still, as we were talking about when y'all first got here, you're still running a OEM transmission, an electronically controlled OEM transmission. Are y'all still have independent rear suspension in the back of this car? Okay.
Stock axles, stock rear end, just in case you're wondering.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
And stock rear suspension.
Yeah, stock rear suspension. It's been as fast as 128
To the short foot?
60
Oh,
foot. Yeah,
boy.
at 4,500 pounds. This car is heavier than when she first got it because we put an iron block 427 in it.
Yeah, that doesn't help things.
No,
It's been a good block.
no, it has been extremely impressive the way that this car works. Like very solid platform.
That shouldn't work.
It shouldn't.
If you draw it on a board, that's not really what you're aiming for.
Right. So we actually talk with some of the Cadillac engineers.
Okay.
We've actually become friends with them, and they were impressed that the car's stock components
Can do this.
Yeah, have withstood everything that we've thrown at it. you
Very
know?
nice people.
Yeah, they were impressed. So that was like a cool thing, because like, everybody over engineers things, right?
Sure.
And they're building this CTSV, like it's a big deal, like
Right.
it's
It is
Cadillac's
Cadillac's flagship. Yes.
Right. So it's a big deal. So for them to hear that those stock components did what they did, they were impressed. And so that was like a nice appreciation,
Yeah, no kidding,
That was
man.
cool.
That's one hell of a tip of the cap.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
no joke. But obviously, this thing evolves into the monstrosity that it is today. The beautiful monstrosity,
Yes.
may I
Thanks.
add, that it is
Yes.
today.
Orange is the best color.
I agree with you on that.
Says his hat.
100%. Cannot agree with you more on that. Y'all are from Oklahoma, right? So good. But anyway, with that being said, you like we were talking about, you do the heads, do the cam, and then when you go out to the racetrack, right? After you got the heads and cam done, what were your expectations?
I wanted to run a 9.
Okay, and what did it do?
It ran a 9.4 in the same night. And it did a wheelie all in the same night. And the next morning, I ran down the stairs at our friend's house, who we were staying at, screaming because Red's photography had posted it from Tulsa. And not only had we ran 9s that night, but the car had also picked up the front wheels, and it was not very much, a couple inches.
But
You
there
could
was
see
daylight.
light, and that's all that matters.
That's right. I agree with you.
She says it was a couple inches, and I admire your overthought to that. Okay, but I really think in the picture you could have like slid a notebook, maybe.
Do you want to talk about your bike wheelie?
Yeah, that was a great wheelie.
Oh God! Hang on, I sense something here that is.
No. We're not going down that
Yes,
road.
we are. Yes, we are.
I feel like I don't have a decision in this.
It'll be quick. It'll be
Yeah,
quick.
it's a story just like yours. My wheelie was big. It wasn't. That's where we are.
No, he's
Feels like it's a little more than that.
he is so proud of this wheelie on his first bike. The
Hang on.
660.
What kind of? Oh, six. Okay,
It was
so
a 660.
okay.
No, not the first one.
Yeah,
No?
No,
we
it
were
was-
in the old house.
Yeah, it was a ZZR 600.
Oh,
Okay.
it was a 600.
Yeah.
What was a 660?
We never had that. We had
Okay,
the R1.
scratch that. It was a 600.
Okay, so ZZ
Really?
600.
It was ZZR 600.
Okay.
It was
Thought it was a 660.
it was a 2007. It was still carbureted. It was like the old Ninja
Right.
that they kind of geared towards the sport touring.
Yep.
I
And
loved it.
I bought this bike for like $2,500, I think.
Maybe $2,000. It was
Yeah,
really cheap.
It was the first bike I'd ever bought, so I was like, I'm just gonna buy a cheap one in case I drop it or something like that.
Whatever, yeah.
I'm not gonna be upset.
Right.
Yeah. So I bought this little ZZR 600.
Man, I can't believe it was a 600.
Those things are fun.
I think I have
It
short-term
was a
memory
blast.
loss.
It was a good time.
Okay, so he is on this. I am still in the Honda Civic, and he tells me that he has got the bike to do a wheelie, and that I have to come like record him.
Oh, because this is a monumental moment
This
for
is
a
a big-
man
this is
to
a
be able
big
to
deal.
pick up the front tire. I
Yes.
understand it. I remember mine. I remember my first one. It was a
big
big
deal.
moment. Okay,
It's
I get
scary,
it.
but you're excited.
I get it. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I get it.
So I get beside him, roll the window down. I'm trying to drive and video. Yes, pretty much, pretty much. And I see his movements of, but like the only thing that's moving is like the suspension, like the
him and the
forks.
struts.
That's it.
Okay, so what she can't speak for, okay? When you're riding a bike and the steering goes free,
And then comes down.
but when the steering goes free, you know you're doing a wheelie. I don't care if it's a half inch or 12 o'clock. The steering is free. Like, I know the front wheel's off the ground. Now, mind you, this little 600, I have to suspension bounce to get it to pick the front
Yep.
wheel up, right? Like, you're not going to accidentally do a wheelie on it.
No.
You got to force it to do a wheelie. So I do it, and I hit it, and it comes up, and it's like limp for a second, and then it comes back down, and she's like, "Did you do it?"
There was no up.
I was like, here we go. So forever, she likes to tell that story.
I'll never forget it.
Neither am I.
It was a good time.
You know what? Neither am I.
So then we graduated from the 600, and I bought an R1, and then I bought a ZX10, and it escalated from there. So I regained my dignity on those other bikes.
He did.
Street bikes are fun.
Oh, they're a blast.
dangerous as hell when you get other people in multi-thousand-pound vehicles around you.
Yes.
But I love street bikes.
Yeah.
Honestly, man, they're so cool. Dead bone stock. It's like 15,000 RPM. They sound cool as hell.
Yes.
You know, like they're just awesome.
Yeah.
I have an infatuation with them. I'll never own one. I'm petrified. I know some folks are petrified of the ocean or the space or whatever. Yeah, I'm just scared of other people being in multi-thousand-pound machines and me not being in one.
And honestly, you should be. Even if you own one, you know, just like you say, you respect power.
Yeah.
You've got to respect power.
Yeah.
You've got to respect the fact that you are open to everybody else
exposed.
around you. And we
Yeah.
all know those people are not paying attention.
Oh, not even the least bit.
They're
No.
not.
Yeah.
They're not. So I feel like if you're not concerned, that's concerning.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you've got to pay attention. But for the record, Aaron did redeem himself. He did take the bike to the ZX10, right, to the track a lot.
A lot. Yeah.
And-
We drag raced. I drag raced it. It was stock wheelbase. And so a ZX10 makes a lot of torque.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So I'd launch it in first gear, and I'd be as far over the handlebars as I could comfortably be. And then as soon as I shifted into second, the wheel came back up. Like it was so aggressive, but it was an adrenaline rush. I think I went like 10.3 at like 144 miles an hour. Like mile an hour is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
But the time is terrible. Like my 60 foot was probably 3 seconds.
And well, it's also a totally different experience when you do it in an open body car or a bike.
Yes.
I don't know if you've been that fast on a bike or anything open.
I have not.
Like I got my license in a dragster, right? And doing quarter-mile pulls. Like initially, you do your first couple eighth-mile pulls or whatever. And yeah, you feel it. You're going 120, 130, 140 miles an hour. Like, wow, this is really different experience. And then you go and you extend and you run the rest of the damn track. And it is night and day. It is completely different. I remember my first quarter mile pass in a dragster, like my helmet got twisted around and stuff. Like I could only see out of my right eye barely.
Oh, no.
Like all these things. And it's like, okay, you all of a sudden get a much deeper appreciation for what it is that you're attempting to do.
Literally humbles you.
Right. Immediately.
Right.
And I mean, obviously you can go a lot faster than that when you have a wide open road on a bike for damn sure.
Right.
But there's just something about that experience of being in the open, being exposed, and feeling the air hit your neck, or anything else. You know, if you got hair flowing out of the back or whatever, it's whipping around. It's just cool. I recommend even if nobody wants to have a race car or whatever, go to like getting one of those 2-seater dragsters or something like that. Go experience that because you just get such a different appreciation for it in general. But turning back around to you. This is about y'all.
We get so off topic.
I know.
That's okay.
We had a
It's a good
2-hour shop tour.
That's okay.
I think it's my fault.
It is.
No, the shop tour was Chris's fault.
I agree 100% in that. I am here to blame Chris on that. No doubt about it. Oh, God. Yeah, my wife's going to kill me, but that's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I have a scapegoat. I have Chris. But y'all have progressed this vehicle from a point of obtaining it when it was modified, obviously, right? Had a cam in it, probably had headers on it, bolt-on modifications plus a little bit of internal upgrades.
Right.
And now it has a larger supercharger on it. It has a much different engine displacement on it. It has much different cylinder heads on it. Everything about it is just more, right? So do you still feel the I don't want to say, I hate saying this, but like the rush or whatever, like the first time you get into a race car and it pins you back or stands the wheels up or whatever, the very first time it does it, it lays an impression upon you, right? That is just never forgotten. Now, as you keep driving that same car, and if it doesn't progress, it can become routine, right? Which in some racing situations is exactly what you want.
Right.
However, do you still get the joy and do you still get everything that you feel out of it at the power level that you're at right now? Does it still scare you just a little bit? Because that's, to me, like if I go hop in a fast car, I get that little bit of nerves. Like I got to be on my P's and Q's. You know, I got to be up.
Yeah.
I can't. It's not like I'm driving my little slow wagon. You know, I got to be here. I got to be present in it. Do you still get that feeling?
So I still absolutely love the car. I'm still that person that will turn around and take that picture 7 years later, and we'll take that video, the same cam video that I've had for 4 years. I still take it. I still take those cold start videos. But that feeling that originally scared me and that I let off like 3 times my first pass down the track, it's not the same. And it's only not the same because we went a very different route with the car. Like I said, I wasn't educated. I didn't grow up in a shop. None of my family had race cars. So for me, I was learning from scratch with Aaron in the garage. And it was just like trial and error. And so we did one small upgrade at a time, as long as we weren't forced into a larger one.
Right.
One small upgrade at a time. And so the car's horsepower really progressed very slowly for me to learn and be comfortable and get seat time and just get all of that under my belt and the knowledge that I feel like you need to make a lot of power. And so since we did that, there was never that big jump of I made 600, now I make 1,200. It didn't work like that. So for me, I get very used to the car. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Aaron got in it 2 years ago and took it.
Are you telling the 9.0 story?
And took it down the track. Do you want to tell it? The look on your face is you're mad. I'm telling it.
No, I'm not mad.
We can skip over it and come back to it.
That's a great experience of mine.
Okay, I'm going to skip over it.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell it. I'm going to let Aaron tell it. I'll just say I do still love it. Absolutely, probably more than the day that I got it, but it's a different love. It's like, you know, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to put you through hell, and I hope that you take it. And if you don't, I'm going to be really upset, and then we're going to do it again.
That's my exact conversation every time I go to drive a boat.
But, you know, before I was so scared to hurt it, and I think it's because you're scared of the unknown.
Exactly.
And not only that, don't get me wrong, I'm not stinking rich, you know?
Oh, like, yeah, there's financial consequences to not performing
absolutely
at your tasks.
Absolutely. Right. And so, you know, I'm scared of the unknown and scared of the cost when it's your daily driver. Now that it's not, and now that, you know, I have more knowledge and I have seen what Aaron can do, I'm not as concerned. So maybe when I hear that little noise, I'm like, we're in 2 classes, let's keep going. You know, it's a different love. It's a different love that I'm so obsessed with it. And I don't know if that will ever go away. I tell people all the time, this car will die with me. Even if I've got 10 more race cars, the 4-door Rocket is stuck with us. So Aaron got in the car.
So real quick, let me just kind of answer your question for you. So this girl will go out, we'll make changes to the car, and we go out and we got to adjust the tune, right? Very mildly, but you got to adjust the tune. And so she'll make the pass and it'll run like a 1/10 slower, right?
Okay.
And she'll come back and she'll be like, that was slow. And I'm saying she went like a 9.0 at like 153 and she's like, yeah, that was slow.
Yep.
And the people that are standing around us are like dumbfounded. They're like, 9.0 is slow? She's like, yeah, it felt slow. So to tell the story about the 9.0. So Felicia her goal was to run 8s. At some point, her goal was to run 8s. So the car went 890. It was on the LSA. We were on like a 150 shot that night of nitrous on top of it. Maybe 200, somewhere around there. And so Felicia gets it. She gets like 892 is what the car ran. And she comes back and she's so excited, this, and that. And she's like, hey, go make a pass in it. And I'm like, okay. So I jump in this car and I tell her, I'm like, I'm only going to go to the 8th mile.
That is what he said.
Yeah, I say, I'm only going to go to the 8th mile. I only want to feel.
We share a lot in common, by the way. You don't know this.
Well, I'm telling her, like, once you feel that launch, that's the adrenaline. You
know? Exactly.
The speed at the top is cool, but like that pin back in the seat where you're trying to hold on to the steering wheel, that's the adrenaline, right? So I've raced her car on non-race tracks multiple times,
Legally.
right? Yeah, and
Allegedly.
yeah, but you don't feel that 60 foot, right?
Because it's not there.
Right. So
Right.
I took her car down the track. She went 890. I go up there. I go to do the burnout, and I think I blow like her turn down off the car.
Okay.
Blows out, knocks the back bumper loose, all this other stuff, right? So I'm like, I'm in the car. I have no idea. She's standing on the starting line. I get up on the converter, and I'm trying to push the car because I know how she drives it. I see the logs. I know exactly what she does. So I'm like, let me see if I can do better.
Right. Instead of at 2,800, you're trying to get in the stage bulb at $3,000 or whatever it is. Yeah.
Exactly that. So she stages it. I'm trying to stage higher. So I get it there. That light turns green. I let off the brake and I smashed the gas, and I shit you not, I blinked and I was through the quarter mile. It slammed my head back so hard that by the time I caught what was going on, the board was passing me. And so I just hit the brakes and I slow down and I come back around and she's like, I thought you were only going to run the 8th. I was like, shit, me too. I thought I was going to too.
He said, I've never seen the 8th.
Yeah, literally, it was so violent. I mean, this thing, it weighs 4,500 pounds, and it cut. I think that pass was like a 132,
something
or
like
something.
that.
And I knew it was going to be fast, and it slammed me to the point that I was like I was scared for my life making this pass.
Yep.
And so I come back around, and I'm like, and you say 9.0 is slow. I went 9.0. She went 8.92. I went 9.0.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you say 9.0 is slow. And it's got me like, when you come back and you're excited, but you're like shaking at the same time. That was me. And so I'm like walking around, and I'm like shaking and stuff. And she was like,
got that nervous energy.
Yeah. She was like, was that cool or what? And I'm like, that was a life changer. Like I'm excited.
I'm
right
not
now.
the same man anymore.
Right,
I have seen the light.
Man, yeah. So that was impressive. That night was. I was super excited about it.
I feel like his reaction really humbled me. Like you get very used to things and you just get like complacent. You know, the car, it luckily 99% of the time, it is very consistent. I can tell you exactly what it's going to do, when it's going to do it. People say I can put makeup on and do it because it's just very consistent. Now, it took us a long time to get it there.
Of course.
But it is. And so I get very used to it. And so that night, like, I'll never forget it because he just like brought me back down to planet Earth. Like, hey, like you have a fast car you've worked hard for, like come back down here because you always see what other people have. And everybody's always faster and they always make it seem easier. And, like they got it yesterday and they turned around and it ran a 7 the next day, you know, and that stuff for us is just unrealistic. We can't do things like that. And so, sometimes you just get a little down and I feel like Aaron really humbled me that night. And I try not to say that a 9.0 or 890s feel slow in front of people because they kind of get upset sometimes. So it doesn't feel slow. I'm just used to it.
Exactly.
That's the only thing. And
you're expecting it.
Yeah.
It is the honest reality of it. I've been lucky enough to drive quite a few different vehicles. And the biggest thing to me that I learned or was taught, to be honest with you, I didn't come up with this on my own, is when it comes to leaving the starting line, after I stage the car, I am flexing my abs and I have my head tilted down so far forward that I'm trying to look through my eyelids because if you tilt your head down and you try to look up, it's painful to blink. So therefore, if it's painful to do it, the body's not going to do it naturally, right? So that is one of the things that I was taught, and it has helped me tremendously in that. And then also like the whole neck snapping back and everything else, like flex the abs, head down. It handles all those things, and it's kind of weird to seeing something that you would think about controlling your body movements like in a sport, in a stick and ball sport, transitioning into the car in drag racing, right? We're talking about drag racing, right? And any road course guys, you can be like, oh, drag racers, you stand around for 45 minutes to make one pass, be in the car for 5 seconds. Yeah, I get it. Okay, I understand. Road course guys are in a different.
It's different.
They're in a different little area. They operate over there, but they're never going to get the experience of multiple G's putting them back in a seat.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah. Right.
It's just not going to
They
happen.
don't get that. They get the G's pulling them to the side.
Yeah, side or forward on the brakes, right?
Right.
And it's a totally different discipline. But it's interesting that there is something that you have to be a tiny little bit of an athlete to do. Just a gauche of it and put in there makes it that much more of a human interaction with the vehicle, if that makes sense. Because in drag racing today, you know, we have so many different things with the electronics and even if you don't have a OEM transmission that's electronically controlled, you know, a Turbo 400 or Power Glide that's air shifted or electrically shifted, you know, you every time you put something like that in a vehicle, you become disconnected from it.
Right.
So the only two things that you can really have are that moment of it pinning you in the seat and then you being mentally focused to do your job, whether it be the burnout for the right amount of time, the right amount of length, staging the car properly, hitting the tree properly, right? That's basically what you got to do. But you have to be extremely focused to be able to dial that in and understand where you are situationally in every single one of those things. And that's just if everything goes right.
Right.
There's a lot of times when stuff doesn't go right.
I definitely go into, and some people might say that this is great and good job that you can do that. And some people are going to say that is freaking terrible. But I just go into tunnel vision.
Oh, yeah.
So when I'm on the line, I see Aaron because that's who I watch. Do I need him to tell me exactly what to do and when to let out and so on and so forth? Maybe not, just because we've done it so much, but that's not the point. I have to have him there or I feel like I'm off my game.
Mm-hmm. It's a routine.
Yeah, he's the only person I see. When we are at Texas 2K and there's thousands of spectators there, or when we're filming on Street Outlaws and there's cameras all around you and 5 GoPros in the car, I literally see nobody. I don't see any of them. I don't hear any of them. I don't see all the people around the car betting. Like, I literally just see Aaron until I need to look at the light. And those are the two things that I focus on. So hard to wear sometimes, especially at like test and tunes, if we're really practicing on something, I won't even know who's beside me.
Oh, yeah.
I don't need to know because the only two things that I'm looking at is Aaron and the light. And I know, you know, when you're street racing, you need to be aware of your surroundings. And don't get me wrong, I especially on the big end, you know, I am
get hairy.
Yeah, I am watching. But when it comes to that line, you know, I feel like drag racing is a lot of mind games.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and it's mentally taxing on you when there's people surrounding your car, betting against you or for you. It doesn't matter either way. It makes you very nervous. And so for me, I've always focused on him. I have to have him right there, and I don't see anything else.
Yeah, I've listened to a few psychologists talk, you know, whether it be about, most of the time they're talking about baseball when they mention this stuff. And they're talking about a hitter being able to achieve peak focus at the right time. If you achieve peak focus when you're in the dugout, that's not going to do you a damn bit of good when you're in the batter's box, right? So it's about being mentally organized enough to be able to achieve that focus to therefore go ahead and execute at your job. I do want to mention, obviously, the elephant in the room of the whole situation is that you've not only decided to build this car and enjoy the car and what you do in a camaraderie situation and all these other things at the actual racetrack with these people, with your husband, you know, it's certainly one aspect of it. The other thing that you decided to do was to share your experiences on Instagram, right? And while I will never, and Aaron has seen it, I imagine, how weird is it being a woman and also being in an extremely male-dominated industry? And I am going to assume that probably people have treated you differently for being a woman, but I can't know. And I will never be able to understand that situation. The only man that can is right there, right? I mean, have there been struggles and have there been other situations that are just like unnecessary or anything like that have come up and that have maybe not made you feel so great about being in that in the car industry as a whole? Or do you just understand that people are people and you can find an asshole anywhere?
I definitely do understand that. I did not grow up, I guess, with a lot of friends. And so I get it, male or female dominated. People are rough. They're rough. But in this industry itself, yes, it doesn't matter what I do. People are going to treat me different, rather that's for the better or for the worse. Mm-hmm. But I feel like, at least around here, that we have established enough of a name and enough of a relationship with people that they no longer blink an eye. You know,
Right.
like we're good here. But there was a time where I wouldn't post on any forums before I had Instagram. Actually, if y'all want to know, Aaron made the 4-Door Rocket Facebook page. And I think even linked it to the Instagram page because I did not like social media. He made all of that. So that's a little fun fact. But there was a time where I was scared to even post on anything because I was very ignorant, which means I didn't know what I was talking about. I literally wanted to ask questions, and it was Cadillac specific. And I was scared to ask because people were so mean. Wow. And so anytime I had a question, like I would ask Aaron, like, hey, can you post on CTSV versus the world? Or can you post on this forum? Or can you do this? Because I don't want people to make fun of me because I don't know. And there was a point in time where I got over that. Because if you don't ask questions, then you're never going to know.
Right.
And you're never going to learn. And so then once you kind of get past that, we were at a race where we had somebody tell us that they would rather forfeit than lose to a girl.
That did happen.
So
yes,
that did happen.
I've never seen that.
That is the only time that's ever happened. And to tell you the truth, I can't even remember. I don't even think I raced him that night. I think he got knocked out by somebody else, and sucks to suck. So
that's the way that usually goes.
But other than that, guys, you've been great. Like I maybe it is the way we carry ourselves. Maybe it's the way people have watched us struggle, or maybe people are just getting used to women being in the industry more. But other than those couple of situations, I haven't had a lot of issues, and I feel terrible for the ones who have, because you see a lot of women saying like that this industry has been so hard on them and they've gotten so much backlash and so on and so forth. And I feel for them, and I am here to help in any way that I can. I feel very fortunate that I really haven't had as much.
And that's why I wanted to ask you that question. I know it may not be an easy one to answer, but it's something that if you're, it's no secret. This industry is predominantly men that participate in it, whether it be on like the manufacturing side, what we have here, the participation side, the sanctioning body side. Doesn't matter what you do. It's mostly men that are involved. And so, like, I personally wanted to know the answer to this because I can't know, right? And I do see some examples of like what you mentioned of some women venting on social media, and it's 99.9% of the time I would assume is rightly so, but there's no way to gain an appreciation for it until you shift your perspective into someone else's shoes, right? The old walk a mile in someone else's moccasins type thing.
Absolutely.
And that's just, it's, from what you've explained, a couple of instances, I'm glad. I expected a lot more, just to be totally honest with you, and it made me feel a little bit better about humanity. So you brought me up a little bit.
But with that, so what you have to remember is anytime you're posting on social media and you're as transparent as Felicia is, she will explain everything to a detailed T, right?
No matter who they are, by the way. Right. I'd like to add that because I've seen you do it.
So with that being said, though, somebody is always going to tell you that you're doing it wrong.
Or we get it every day.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter what you do. And so early on, I had to explain that to Felicia. She would get annoyed that people would comment and say things like that, right? But it doesn't matter. It definitely was more because she's a female.
Right.
But it doesn't matter if I posted something like that. They still are going to comment and say, oh, I'd have done this, or you wasted your time doing this, and that. Like, people just do those type of things. But if you don't acknowledge those comments and you only respond to the people that are being genuine or helpful or stuff like that, you slowly weed those other ones out. Because they're only making those comments to get a rise out of either you or the audience that's there. So if you ignore those and grow past them, literally they will slowly weed themselves out.
That's wonderful advice, to be honest with you.
I do get a lot of those comments. I guess I shouldn't say that I don't, but I, like Aaron just said, I feel like they'd say that to anybody. Like to me, to him, I felt like it wasn't female related, you know, like when we're building the trans and they can't see the trans fluid to the right of me and they're like, oh, those clutches aren't soaked. And I'm like, well, little do you know, one, they're pre-soaked, and two, they are still soaking right here because we're adamant and doing it again.
They're just out of frame.
You just can't see it. And so I do get those comments, or the, literally I had the bolt, the ARP little thing in front of me whenever we were putting the heads back on, and they told me I was doing the wrong pattern.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, well, that's weird because it's right here on their website. So, but I feel like those comments are towards anybody. Anybody is going to get those. Most of the time, the people commenting probably don't even have cars. Or anything
their uncle
like that.
did 30 years ago, and now they'd like to pretend that they're an expert on the internet.
Yeah, I do just avoid those. And Aaron really helped me through all of that. I would get like genuinely upset sometimes when people were just rude for no reason, and it doesn't matter what they said or what it was about, but sometimes those people will get to you, every once in a while they strike a chord, and that's what they're looking for. And so you never want to give them the time of day, but every once in a while, it's just like, man, I cannot talk to this person today. Like, I'm just going to avoid it, And social media has become a second job for me, which is insane since I avoided it with all cost, if possible, before the car. But I wouldn't change anything. We've met so many people and got to do so many crazy things, and I'd never imagined I'd be right here talking to you. So,
well, that makes two of us. So, but. It's interesting, though, talking about social media, right? This is something that's come about in our generation as far as being predominant. There's obviously multiple people that do it full-time for a living, and doesn't have to be car related. It could be almost anything related. What has that been like as far as, when you started on social media? Because like you said, you avoided it like the plague, and now it's part of your daily life for more than just sharing your experiences with family and friends. I would assume so, right, seeing as how many followers you have.
My family's not that big.
But so when you started it, right, and you put out some pictures or videos or whatever it may be, did you ever have any expectation of it getting to this point?
No, not even close. So if we want to go all the way back to day one when Aaron created the pages, boost mode. Boost mode is a blower porter, and he does other stuff too down in Houston. And he seen a couple things that we had posted on Facebook, and he said, hey, I really like what y'all are doing. I think that we could work together if maybe you would make some social media pages. Right. My immediate response was no. And and Aaron's immediate response was, yeah, why not? It'll be fun. And so we did it, and thanks to him. I haven't talked to David in a while. We have moved on since then, but he is the reason that we started the pages, and I never imagined that they would be where they are, and that people would want to buy shirts with my car on them, or stickers, or want to come take pictures, or in the very beginning, people wouldn't talk to me. They actually would only talk to Aaron.
Oh yeah,
because they automatically assumed that it was his.
Yeah. So that did happen a lot. They would walk up, and she would be standing right next to me, and they would directly address me.
To be honest, I never even thought about that.
Oh yeah, they did that quite a bit in the beginning.
So for people now to walk up to me because they've seen me,
right?
It's mind blowing. It's insane.
It's unique.
It very.
Yeah, I think I can share a little bit of that experience, with me and Gavin doing the tech videos and stuff like that. And then you go somewhere and someone's like, hey, I know who you are. And it's like, weird, I don't know who the hell you are. Yeah. Like, stay away, like stranger danger, like, so like those first couple interactions were very awkward for me.
Right.
I wasn't prepared for that.
I really think it's made me grow as a person.
I think it feel like it has to.
Yeah, it does, because people act a certain way if somebody is watching,
Of course.
And they act a different way if they're not. And if you think about it and there's people watching all the time, you really have to humble yourself.
Yeah.
Like, don't come over here and throw a fit because that pass just went bad. We all want to do it. But when you pull up and there's little kids sitting there waiting for you because even though that pass was just terrible, they think it's the best thing they've ever seen in their lives. You're humbled, and you just have to put that aside and be like, that was wonderful. And I remember Emily Reeves coming up to me on Rocky Mountain Race Week day 1, my first time ever being there. We were excited to meet each other. I'm sure you know her. Her and her husband Aaron have Flying Sparks Garage, and she came up to me. I had just made a pass. She has her phone out. She's already recording. I'm not even out of the car. And she's like, I can't believe you just went 9:30. That is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And at this point, I know the car's hurt. And I was like, thank you. And she said, was that what you were wanting? And I was like, no, it wasn't. It wasn't actually. That was really bad.
I'm living a nightmare. Go away.
I feel like it's really made me grow as a person, and I like it for that aspect. Not necessarily do I like that people are watching or recognize me when I have my hair in a bun and I haven't slept in days, and no, but the fact that people care so much and they want to come and talk to you, it's different. It changes you.
I would have to agree with that. When you speak about, seeing kids at the racetrack and stuff like that, what was your very first experience of like knowing that you wanted to be into cars?
So my mom, dad, sister, that's my whole close family. They all had cars, whenever I was growing. I'm 7 years younger than my sister. So, she had a Mustang. My mom had a little Mazda. They would try to race each other. This is nothing crazy. We're talking stock V6 cars.
Right.
But they liked them was the point. They liked cars. If we seen a nice car, they wanted to look at it. My dad, had a bike that he actually raced, and, he had a, 99, 2000 Cobra that he actually tried to teach me, attempted, to drive manual in. But we didn't grow up with money, and so, we usually, I lived in some low income apartments or in a trailer in the country. And so we didn't have anything crazy, but the love for cars has always been there. There was a little dirt track in the town that I graduated high school. And so we would go there all the time. Mainly me, that we lived in apartments that were down the street. So me and my friends would walk to it all the time. So I always really liked cars. And then when I met Aaron, he liked cars. And we raced each other in our slow cars. And somebody jumped railroad tracks and flew sparks everywhere, and then my car wouldn't start afterwards. And the love has always been there. It just really took Aaron's knowledge and us graduating college and getting a job that I could start to funnel money into a build to actually do something. But for as long as I can remember, my entire family liked cars. They were just the spectators of the world, the watchers, the walk through at a car show, something like that. And then we took it to a different level.
Okay. What about you, Aaron? What was your first introduction into anything that made loud noises and used a lot of money?
So I was probably 16 years old. And I was visiting my mom in Kentucky, and this guy, that she rented from, he had an El Camino that had it was like a pro touring car. It had big back tires, had a blower sticking out of the hood, real nice. And it was an older man, and he loved that car. He kept it pristine, like everything. Well, I did some work for him, and he asked if I wanted to go for a ride in it.
Okay.
So I'm like, yeah, it's a cool car. Like, it's shiny. It makes a lot of noises. Like, yeah, let's go for a ride. And, he got on it, but it wasn't anything like what I'm used to now. But at the time, it felt fast.
Right.
And I was like, man, this is so cool. And he's like telling me how it was his dream and all this other stuff. So I ended up buying that V6 Camaro shortly after that, little third gen manual car. And boy, I thought that was the hottest thing out. And it was a slow progression from there, but that was my first, like, this world of performance vehicles is out there, you know? And I'll never forget. So like we were talking about, I have a huge thing for bikes, right?
Right.
Like we talked about, I like bikes. We were riding the ZZR and we were cruising through downtown Oklahoma City, and the Hot Rod show that comes there had just finished. And so there was this Camaro, the supercharged one. You remember it? The 5th gen that we raced on the bike?
We raced a lot of cars on the bike.
Anyway, so these two cars are at this light, and I pull up and I'm talking to the back one. I don't remember where he was, and I'm like, which one of you is faster? And he points at the 5th gen Camaro in front. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, okay, you know, like, let's go see. So I pull up next to him and I'm like, hey, like, is that car fast? And he was like, yeah, it's pretty quick. And so he kind of like revs it and you can hear the blower whine.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, okay, you know, so light turns green, and luckily he didn't punch it from the light. You know, I'm on a 600 and it's me and her, so it'd have been done.
Right.
So we get up to like 30 miles an hour and I look over at him and he's like, you want to go? And I'm like, yeah. So he honks it, 3 honks, we take off. This little 600 feels quick. You know, a bike feels quick. I understand that the perception of it is different, but it feels fast.
Yeah.
This Camaro drove away from me on the bike. And I was just like, oh my God.
What is that?
Yeah. I'm like, I didn't even know like those big cars could go, you know, like that. So that was a turning moment in my life when I was like, man, you know, like it was impressive for a car to beat a bike, because that at that time, that was back in like 2013, somewhere around there. That's not common, you know? Like there were some high horsepower cars out, but you didn't find them easily.
Right.
So,
it wasn't like you come down here and there's 1,000 horsepower street cars. You just throw a rock and you'll hit one.
Right.
So much has changed.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
In today's world, you know, 849 or faster for the street car class at Texas 2K.
Yeah.
849 is the cutoff.
For a street car.
For a street car. That is that's a 40 car field, 50 car field, and 849 is the cutoff.
Exactly.
It's insane. It's insane. So you come across 1,000 horsepower car and you won't even know it. He'll be on damn near street tires, and you're like, oh yeah, look at that car, and then he punches it and you're like, holy shit, what just happened? You know?
Says the man that drives a 700 wheel horsepower daily truck.
Well, that's true.
I like your style.
But I like to be surprising. And
there you go.
That truck does exactly that. It pulls up, it sounds like it's got a cam. So that's why I tell everybody, yeah, it's just cammed. And then it just walks away. But it's a lot of fun. It's a big 4-door truck, so it catches everybody off guard.
Those are always the fun ones, in my opinion.
It is. I'm a huge fan of the races that just happen to pop up.
Okay.
Like you're cruising down the road, you're cruising down the highway, you know, you're going to watch a movie or something, and a Camaro pulls up next to you, or a Mustang that looks good, sounds good. Mm-hmm. And you're like, man, I wonder if that's fast. So, you know, you kind of hit the throttle a little bit, and then you hear him do something.
And then you're like, all right, it's on.
Then you're like, okay, roll the window down. Like it's about to go now.
So I want to point out how Aaron says you just you just run into these races.
Is he just a magnet for him or what?
He is creating the races. Hey. The races start with him.
I will get your attention. If I think that your car is something respectable, I will get your attention. I will show you that I think I can beat it.
Aaron's the guy that gets like bullied into like doing a burnout because a school bus pulled up next to him and some 6th grader dropped the window. I was like, hey, do a burnout.
That reminds me of race week, one of the years when we were in front of the library and the kids pulled up on the bike and was like,
oh, I have a video of that. Yeah.
They were like, can that car do a burnout? And I'm like, you goddamn right it can. So I let it rip, you know, it's like, does a bear shit in the woods? Yeah. I'm like, it'll do a burnout. It's a good time. You gotta have fun.
We're not country or nothing.
Yeah, hey, I trust me. I relate in every absolute sense of it. But here's the really cool thing that you don't know you don't know the consequences of your action in a positive manner. What I'm saying by that is, each time you do that, you have just made somebody else fall in love with cars.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So just keep in mind that you have just funneled thousands and thousands of dollars away from that child's life.
In a good cause, right?
Right.
Better that than other things they could be buying. Right?
Hey, I agree with that. That's for sure.
So Felicia actually, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, go ahead.
Felicia she's actually taken a few kids for rides, right? With parents' permission. She took one for a ride. They did the full 8th mile on a sanctioned street race.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have an in-car GoPro video of this pass, and the reaction on the girl's face is hilarious.
That is absolutely priceless.
Oh,
I
yeah.
still talk to her whole family.
Oh, yeah. So Felicia punches it. So she does the burnout, and the girl's kind of laughing and smiling like, she's having a good time. And then Felicia pulls up and stages the car. The flashlight comes on and she punches it. And this little girl, like, you see her just sink back into the seat. And she's like reaching up for the door handle as slow as she can to grab it. And then Felicia starts slowing down and she's like looking around, like, is this okay? Like, are we going to hit something, And it's just the funniest video. Simple things like that, though, like you said, literally change people's lives.
They do. It's amazing what small thing that someone that has eyeballs on them for a moment can have such a ripple effect in other people's lives. I've had those moments myself, and like what you're talking about, like your mom and your sister, just messing around with their stock cars, and those over time, those effects, how many of them happen, and look at what you're doing now. I feel like you work almost a full-time job, promoting the car, promoting the people that you work with, like Boost District and Thompson, and on down the line. And I feel like you do a good job of it.
Thank you.
But
Atta girl.
I'm gonna call it like I see it. But it's just funny to have that perspective of where you are today, right? Turn around and look back and see how things started. But my next question for you is what's next? What's the progression? Do you have further ambitions with the Cadillac, or do you have other ideas or other things that you may want to try to do that are obviously going to make financial sense for the situation?
So
none of this makes sense.
Approach that question cautiously,
Why?
because I know what you're about to talk about.
The car? The other car?
Yeah.
Oh.
Why?
Just be cautious.
So with the V, the 4-door Cadillac that is at the house, we are going to change a few things in it for this year that we haven't told anybody about yet. But our game plan is to kind of optimize what we have, lose a little bit of weight, not with taking out any amenities. The car will continue to have the fancy seats and the AC and the power steering. None of that is coming out. Everything will still remain there. But goal with it for the year is to hopefully run 850s. And I don't want 850s like, completely gutting the doors and having to constantly work on it. When I say I want a number, I don't want it once and I don't want it barely. Like, I want it to be comfortably that way. This year we ran 890s comfortably in midsummer, blower only.
Yep.
Like, we didn't pull plugs. We didn't do anything. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
But for 850s, reason being is it is still a street car, and you've got to find somewhere that you fit in, because I can't just go run small tire races at the track. I can't compete with that. I know that's not my lane.
Right.
So there are 850 classes, and I feel like in some DAs and in some situations we can still back off and run 90 classes. And I feel like we fit there, and I'm happy there. And so with the V, that's what we want to do. Then we have a 2-door XLR at the house. Everybody knows that we've had it for a couple years. Stuff is expensive, and it is hard to build so many things at once. And we do have full-time jobs. It's not like we do this for a living and we can go out and just start building stuff during the day. I work in the oil field. I've been there since before I had the Cadillac. I've been there 9 years, and I average like 50 hours a week, and it's hard. And so we built the car. We built it in Ollie. We boosted it. Thompson built the bottom end, and it's pretty close to where we want it.
Is it really though? Is it ever where you want it?
This is the problem.
I saw that.
We're never going to end. Okay, hopefully it is to where we want it for now.
For the foreseeable future.
Yes. Yeah. The V will be where we want it for now. And we can actually start on the XLR. it needs to go to the chassis shop because it will be a lot faster than the 4-door. The 2-door will be pretty a lot quicker. And do you want to give more details? Like, well, it'll just be like an 8th mile no prep car is the game plan. Right. Is the final game plan. But it's going to take some work. It's not a Fox, and I don't mean this in a rude way. It's not a Fox body that's cookie cutter or something like that. It's going to be a little bit more difficult, and I know that. But the XLR was my second dream car, and Aaron wants to race, and so he loves me enough that he was like, well, I guess my race car can be your dream car. So we went and bought the XLR, and it's going to eventually be very fast. And then hopefully we can make a statement and we can both be out racing Cadillacs at an event would definitely be a goal for the foreseeable future. Yeah. But it like he said, though, it's hard. We never leave things alone. And I just said earlier, I never take weekends off. So we're always doing something. We're always changing something. We're always chasing something. And we love it, especially with all of the different events that we do, whether it be quarter mile prepped or 8th mile no prep or a drag and drive or whatever the case may be. We keep ourselves very busy. It's not easy to change the car for all of those events just in the blink of an eye. Plus, he daily drives the Denali that we built. And so that took a little bit of time to reel in and he tuned it himself. So, it just takes a while. So hopefully we can start the XLR this year, at least completely strip it and get it to the chassis shop. And I'm super excited for that car. So
that's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think it will be.
It's going to be a new challenge. Obviously, it's different. Yeah. It sounds like it's going to the chassis shop, so it sounds like it may have a little bit more adjustability than what you got right now. So it may feel at the very beginning like wide open blue ocean and not sure where to head, but I imagine with just a little bit of time, you'll start to find a direction. Yeah. The one thing I've been thinking about doing is for like a pass along question from a previous guest to the one that's current, right? Okay. So like I said, the last person I had on here was Ryan Gleghorn. And while he didn't mean for this question to necessarily be passed on to the show, I'm going to steal it from him. I'm sure he's going to be okay with it. And you're both perfect people for this question to be asked for because you're both in the key demographic we were discussing.
Yeah, my heart's throbbing.
So myself and Ryan and a few other folks that are going to be coming on the show that you see on that board are we operate in basically where racing is another job. It is a supplemental income. We can make money with our racing operations if we're not ignorant with how we spend it and go to casinos and do dumb stuff. But my question that I'd like to pose to you is that you are the quintessential first generation racer, right? Aaron, you are as well, as far as from what I understand. So for a lot of people that are in motorsports, heavily involved as participants, that's not the case, right? So this question would seem very foreign to them. To you, what do you think is the difference between someone building a car to enjoy it and, have something that's nice, that they can be proud of, and goes whatever amount of fast that they can afford, right? Because speed just costs money. We all understand that, right? Mm-hmm. What is it that would possibly be able to bring those people over from just a purist or an enjoyment? I don't mean to say purist because everybody's a purist in motorsports, in my opinion, for the most part. What would bring you over more to the competition side? As far as I know, y'all go to the racetrack and you're obviously competing, whoever's in the other lane, for however many times they're going to show up, for how many river rounds you got. But what would it take, for instance, for your car, right? You say it's consistent, right? Mm-hmm. Well, wouldn't you love to go run for $250,000 to win in Bristol 4th of July weekend at the World Foot Brake Challenge? And guess what? Third round, if you lose third round, you get your entry fee money back. I think that's the flyer, right? I could be wrong. Sorry, Jared and Steve, if I get that wrong. But what would that take? I know it's foreign, right? I know it's not the same, but you race 9.0, right? So you have a breakout, and you understand what that is. Here, guess what? You pick your number, right? And you have all this money to the side. What do you think it would take to bring someone over to the competition aspect of it in a more serious manner? What, from your perspective, what do you think would be the bartering chip that would move you over?
I think money definitely persuades people to do a lot of things. That for somebody who they're not driven by just being competitive in general, I think it would definitely probably have to be money to get them over. For somebody like us, we're so damn competitive that all you got to really do is say, hey, this event's going on and I bet you can't do it. And we're probably going to go. So I think there's two types of people. I think there's people that love cars and they want a pretty shiny one that makes a lot of power. And then they want to keep it like that. And they want to leave it like that. Those people are not us.
Right.
They don't have that competitive drive. They did it for a different reason. Now, if you said, hey, there's 6 figures involved, do you want to come do this? Maybe they'd say, are you crazy? I'm way outgunned. Or most people, money is pretty easily persuasive and they would go.
Right.
Whereas for us, we're just really competitive.
Y'all are racers in like the key word of it. And what I mean by that is like just you are competitive, right? Whether it be someone that rolls up next to you, the kid in the school bus, whatever it may be. Y'all are competitive people, right? So I see that, and honestly, more competitive than a lot of the other people I know that try to go race for all this money, to be totally transparent with you. But we, in sanctioning bodies, NHRA, IHRA, I have friends that work and help run these organizations and things like that, and they have key questions like, why are we not seeing this go fast, what I call the go fast streetcar area, crowd, demographic, whatever word you like to use, transitioning over into either sanctioning racing or independent promoted racing. And there's some barrier there. It's identifying and defining that barrier and then removing it.
So, go ahead.
Are you going to say that the barrier starts with an S?
I don't think so. What's it? What word?
In my opinion, if we're specifically talking about street cars that do not go to those sanctioned events,
it's more than likely a safety thing.
That would be because of the safety rules.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. So
that's totally fair. I understand that.
the other thing that I think we actually looked at some of the requirements and schedules for like NMRA.
Okay.
And because at that point, like, what's the next level for us, right? You can go off one way to like no prep,
Right.
or you can go off the other way, like pro.
Right. If you're looking at heads up racing, right. Yep.
So you're deciding between the two which way to go. The problem that I seen with like the NMRA is the schedule requirements.
Okay.
Like they are all over the nation.
Yes, they're not close. No event is close to the next one.
Right. And so the problem with that is if that's not your full-time job, like if you're not being funded to do that, how do you do it?
Yeah.
Like Felicia and I both work full-time,
Right.
right? And so we go to as many events as we can fit in on the weekends. But now we've got to travel 8 hours for one and then 10 hours the following weekend for the next one or something like that. Like it puts a strong burden on just your life.
It can take your hobby or your racing passion and make it maybe not as much fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that, I think that would be my answer is just, you would have to make it your job. If you're going to be competitive on the pro side, you would have to fully commit. And I don't know how those guys do it. Like we went to a NHRA event and talked to a bunch of the like, the cars, like the Copo classes
Track
and stuff
pack,
like that.
factory
Yeah.
showdown guys. Yeah.
Right. And so we talked to them and, their cars are attainable, right?
What do you think they cost?
I mean, the Copo, I think, is like what, 110, 120,000 from the dealership, non-street legal, like bare bones.
You're not even going to sniff getting on the qualifying sheet with one of those off the showroom floor.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is it's probably the closest attainable thing. Like you're not going to build a top fuel car or something like that, right? Like those are pro teams that have financial backing.
You'd be shocked how close they are in money.
Really?
To build, not to operate. To operate's totally different thing. But to put together, you may be shocked.
Yeah, and I might be. I'm ignorant to that.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it is, but what I'm saying is, what I thought they were the most attainable, relatable.
Sure, absolutely. It's a door
class.
car. It's a showroom.
Right.
You look at it and you're like, that is a Camaro. That is a Mustang. That is a Challenger. Like it's extremely identifiable.
Right.
And so they're there. They're in a nice enclosed trailer. They got a nice truck. And then I look at the schedule, and they're literally all over the nation.
Yep.
And it's like, they might get like a week in between or something like that. But how do you maintain a job and do that?
The secret to that is you don't.
That's what I'm saying.
That's totally honest with you. Is that most of the folks, whether they're doing, whether they're professional bracket racers or they run, they declare that they want to run for national points in something as simple as stock eliminator, right? Stock eliminator is NHRA's true entry-level national event platform. And I can attest to you right now, there's nothing stock about a stock eliminator car at all. Whatever you see being posted online for a stock eliminator car for sale, there's 3 times that amount of money in that car.
Sure.
They're never going to recoup it back out. And in that format also, keep in mind, you're racing for $1,800. So you're racing for almost the same amount of money you do the drag and drive stuff that you have now.
Right.
You're at least really close, within a couple $100 one way or the other. Right. Anything to do with a sanctioning body, an HRA sanctioning body, money's not all that great, to be totally honest with you. Top Fuel Championship, $500,000 to win at the end of the year. It costs you $3 million to campaign that car for a season.
Sure.
So there's no ROI on it for someone wanting to step in, whether it be leasing the program to drive it or to start a team. You better make sure that you have your financial situation very well buttoned up to be able to campaign a car for multiple years, because it does not take long to rack up a $15 million bill when it comes to having a shop, comes to having people that work in that shop, people that go on the road, all these things. It's complex.
Sure.
It's just like running a business, but only worse because you're in motorsports and you have to deal with egos and personalities that are a little atypical.
Right.
But most of the folks that I know that do this a lot, and I mean, 20 plus dates a year, right? You're looking at guys that own businesses, whether it be for the most part, demographically wise, Division I, the Northeast is a lot of software tech people or people that worked at manufacturing facilities for decades.
Right.
And now they're older and they go racing, they're retired. They did the right thing with the nest egg and the investment and everything else, right?
Right.
Down south, Division II, the Southeast, you're looking in Division IV and, III, to be honest with you. You're looking at a lot of individual business owners, people that own roofing companies, people that own, plumbing warehouse supply companies, things of those natures, right? And they obviously dictate their own schedule. They've set up their business to where they don't need to be there every day. The thing can be put on autopilot for the most part for a small period of time for them to go take 2, 3, 4 weeks off at a time to go race.
Right.
And then they show up, they work for a couple weeks, and they take off again.
Right.
And so that is the biggest thing that I see with as far as committing that your most precious resource, which is time, to this, I'll call it what is hobby.
Right.
For most of us.
Right.
Yeah,
for most of us, it really is. And even the people that try to go run all the big money bracket racing stuff, there's a small number of folks that are actually making money.
Right.
It's really not that different. But you're starting to see it now on the heads up side to where people can go race and make money. Because if you can't do it at Top Fuel, right, but you can go do it on this, like the No Prep King schedule comes to mind, right? You see guys like what y'all mentioned before with Ryan. Ryan's won the thing a couple times in a row, few times in a row, I believe, maybe 3.
Right.
It could be more than that. I could be wrong. But he's selling T-shirts there. And yes, he is a business owner. And yes, he's put himself in a good situation to where he can go do this full time. But that racing operation, I would assume, is really close, if not making money, because of how, honestly, he's done a great job. He's very popular.
Right.
People like him. People buy his shirts. Pilgrim and Discovery are very happy that he's involved and probably want to keep him around. So whatever that may take, I don't know if that's other considerations or financial ones to make sure that, and I'm just using Ryan as an example here. There's other people.
Right.
But that now all of a sudden that opportunity exists. It hasn't for a while because top fuel teams started losing money 90s, I take that back. Whenever Winston got out, so 2001-ish, 2000, somewhere around there. That was when a lot of the money dried out of quote unquote, pro motorsports. And now here we are 20-something years later, and the top level of drag racing cannot turn a profitable dime. However, this group of, I'm going to use this term and I hope nobody takes it offensively, but like quote unquote hoodlums, right? Because that's how they were portrayed in the very first ever season of the show,
right?
Are now out here making more profit than the quote unquote experts, right? And it's an interesting dynamic shift. But with what it sounds like y'all are putting together, that opportunity may exist for y'all 5, 6, 10 years down the road, if everything keeps going the way that I see it going, to be totally honest with you. As long as no dramatic life-altering or species-altering event happens for this planet.
At this point.
Yeah, I know. But it's exciting, right?
Definitely.
That's what I see on my end. I don't know if that's what your reality is, but when I look outwards and I just kind of see how things are going, it's interesting to look at people that are in pivotal positions to be able to launch to that next level and get over the hump to where you don't work a 9-to-5 job. I'm not telling you to go quit your job, by the way.
Right.
But it's just interesting to see that. And I got to say this, I'm grateful that y'all are here for this. And I can't wait to have y'all back again. And I hope that y'all do appreciate the place that you have worked to become or to where you're at, because it's rare air in all reality. And y'all are in the position to possibly make that next step in this industry. If anybody is, y'all are in as good of a spot as anybody.
Well, I greatly appreciate those kind words. I think we continue to want to race. We continue to want to go faster. And obviously we're very competitive. We'll do crazy things to get cars to work, to do things.
Oh, yeah.
So I hope that is the case, obviously, right? Like a dream would be to where you could race full time,
sure,
and not work a 9-to-5, right?
Yep.
So like what the Street Outlaws have going is fantastic. Like that's awesome. That's amazing.
It's your ideal business model.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that whole thing is amazing for those guys.
Right.
They're literally getting to hang out with their friends, race all the time, and not have to go to some job, right?
Right. And anybody that talks shit about them for being able to do that is just they're not happy with themselves.
Right. But
to be honest, like they're just either jealous that it's not them, or they're not happy with themselves and what they've created in their own life.
Right. So those, you almost got to look at the Street Outlaws as like the pro athletes, right?
Essentially,
like
yes.
They have made it to that level.
Well, they get more exposure than anybody at the like I keep saying, quote unquote, using air quotes with my hand here, professionals, because they're not professionals.
Right.
I hate to say that, but they are not. Now, the people that work on those cars, people that prepare those cars, they are professionals.
Right.
100%. That is their job. They work 50, 60, 70 hours a week to do that. But the person piloting the vehicle, that's not their job. I mean, well, there's 3 people that do that. And they are actually there on invitation from the owner and have a salary plus whatever a percentage of the car makes.
Right.
But everybody else is paying to be in that seat.
Right.
When you see so and such sponsor on the door and you see a family relationship to that company,
right,
that's a check being written.
Right.
That is not someone that has earned their way through merit, and that's okay. That motorsports has been that way from the beginning. But if you're going to have, in this industry, if you want to have personalities and you want to sell merchandise and you want to have all these things, you got to have your Stevie Jacksons. You got to have, these guys that are extremely talented and both driving or maybe working on cars, as well as being personable and relatable to the people that support their living, which is the fans. And honestly, like I said, I believe that y'all are in as good of a seat as anybody can be if you would want to and you're able to make that next step. Obviously, there's risk involved in that. Obviously, there's a massive amount of time that whatever you think it is, go ahead and double it to be able to be competent at that level.
Absolutely.
But I feel like if anybody's in that spot, y'all are.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Putting a car together on the next level, like what we're trying to do, is going to be a learning curve. Just like it is for anybody. You could buy the best parts. I'm talking top shelf from all your favorite manufacturers, and you bolt it all together, and guess what? Something doesn't work.
There's no guarantee it's going to do what you want it to do on the first try. No shot.
So your point of doubling your time,
right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that is the biggest thing that I've seen a lot of customers, when I was answering phones, stuff like that are hesitant to, is it's unknown. Mm-hmm. And they are the first person in their family or anybody that they know to put a cam in a car,
right?
Or put headers on something. And you don't think about how intimidating that may be to where, like, if I unbolt these things, oh goodness.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
If I unbolt these things, my car is no longer going to work. I hope to God I know what the hell I'm doing.
Right.
So that way I can put this thing back together by Sunday night so I can wake up Monday morning and go to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you're calling your friend to come pick you up because your car won't start.
Right. Exactly. And the fact that it's gone from that, where almost essentially you started, to be generally summarizing, to where you are now, is a testament to anybody that is interested in modifying a vehicle or getting into competitive motorsports, no matter what it is, karting, off-road stuff, boats, who gives a shit? Like, my recommendation to anybody that has ever asked me about stuff, go do it. I don't care if it's skydiving or whatever, go do it. You feel like you want to do it, go for it, man. And I'm impressed to see what y'all have been able to do, to be totally just transparent about the whole situation.
Thank you. Yeah. I think a lot of people probably thought that we were going to be in and out, and there are a lot of people that are, and it's not for them, and it's okay. It's okay because it takes a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of passion.
You can't fake it.
No.
That's the one thing I love about it, is you can't fake it.
No, not at all. You are fully invested, or you're not, and that's okay. This is not for everybody. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Thank you.
There's definitely nothing wrong with that. But for us, I think it is for us.
I would have to agree with that, seeing as how far you've come along now. I would say that your addiction is terminal. So
terminal, yes.
There's no backing out now.
No.
Well, it's 9:00, guys. I thank you so much for coming down here. Thank you so much for everything that you do. We don't have enough time for all of that for me to go in detail on that, but just honestly, thank you guys so much. I'll let y'all get to your, where y'all heading to? You said you're going to go to Thompson?
Not tonight.
Right,
Tonight, Aaron's family is patiently waiting on us. Oh. And then tomorrow, we actually get to go see Thompson and Boost District. We are making a full circle to all of y'all, and then we'll have the car up soon.
Okay, well, make sure to tell them we said, hey, we're not that far away from each other, but we never see each other. But yeah, y'all enjoy your time down here, and get home safe.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us, too.
No real worries. Quick, you were talking about leaving a question for the next person.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, hang on. All right. So the next person is going to be on the show is, right now, it's not concrete, okay? This person's a world champion in drag racing, and at the sportsman level, not at the professional level, at the sportsman level, okay? What would, I'd even take 2 questions. What would they be?
So the one that I always like to entertain the idea of is, what is fast enough?
Okay.
Because I feel like that's a very deep question, because as you slowly chip away at the time and the mile per hour increases, you constantly feel like it's still slow.
Yep.
So you watch these top fuel dragsters that are 330 miles an hour and stuff like that. Well, while we're standing on the sideline, we think that's fast. But if you go talk to them, that was a slow pass. What is fast enough? Or are we unable to determine that amount, right? Because your perception of speed keeps changing, right? Like if you rode in that dragster, for the rest of your life, everything feels slow.
Speed is relative.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Okay. Felicia, you got one?
I like Aaron's question. Can you write that down for mine?
Cheater.
I'll make sure to pass that along. Personally answering you, it's a sound barrier for me.
Hell yeah.
That was a really good question. And
That's a great question. That's very insightful.
yeah, and you've always taught me that that fast is a relative term. You
Yep.
know, it just depends. There are things that are fast for what they are. There's things that are fast for the class. There's things that are fast for you. Like, so just that was a really good question. I wasn't prepared. How long have you been thinking about that?
For like 2 minutes. I was thinking about it as he was concluding the conversation, and I was like, man, I wonder who's next. I'm looking over at the list, and I'm like, what's a question that would fit anybody on that list? And I was like, man, I always think about what is fast enough.
Good job.
I
Good
like
job.
that.
Yeah, me too.
I like that.
That was a joint effort. We
Yes.
talked about it.
Good job. Good planning. Good teamwork. But all right, guys.
Teamwork.
Well, thank you all so much once again for coming
No,
down
thank
here.
you. We'll talk to
Thanks.
you all night.
Yeah.
You got to let us out of here.
Yeah, I got to go
Thanks.
home. I got a pregnant wife I got to take care of.
Tell her.
Yeah. It's okay, guys. It's
Chris's
okay.
fault.
Yeah, exactly. Chris's fault. All right. Thank you guys so much. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.